welcome again to the next iteration of Jumpstart. My name is Chris Thompson. I'm the executive director. Is that what I am? Yeah, here at Generator. And I guess I'm so thrilled to see everybody here. And what's so cool about this is, so we had 72 people here at the first iteration, and I see new faces here, which is just crazy as far as I'm concerned. So thank you so much for coming. And a couple things first. If you haven't signed in, make sure you sign in with your email, because we've decided we're going to do some special offers for you stalwarts who come out for Jumpstart regularly. We're going to email special Generator offers to you guys. So definitely sign in, and the evaluations are actually really helpful. So if you don't mind filling out an evaluation, because this whole process, like everything we do at Generator, it's an iterative process, sort of a design thinking process where we're going to get better at it by every time we do it. And so the evaluations and the feedback really helps on that. That's really, really great. So right now I'd like to introduce Jody Cole, who's from People's United Bank, our series sponsor.
Thank you. I'm not used to using a mic, so sorry, this feels weird. Thank you guys all for coming out tonight. People's United Bank is really excited to be sponsoring this important initiative that Generators put together. My name is Jody Cole. I'm a regional manager of commercial banking. I've been in commercial banking for over 25 years, and initiatives like this one are really, really important to supporting the startup and small business community in the state of Vermont and helping our economy grow. So we're really excited to be part of this. We also are supporting the Launch VT Generator and BTV Ignite in efforts to try to help this community get what it needs to, bring Vermont along. So thanks so much for being here. Tell you a little bit about the bank. In our commercial banking area, we really work hard to understand our business clients' businesses. We develop relationships with them. We understand their opportunities to grow and their challenges, and try to match people with the right products, tools, and services, and or introductions to other people in the community, so that people can get as far along as they can in their business. So it's just a little bit about how we handle our business and what we think is important. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. It's really great to see such a big crowd, and I hope you enjoy the program.
So our sponsors are incredibly important. People's United Bank is a really important collaborator in what we're doing. But I also want to thank, we have a number of other sponsors I want to thank. We have Davis & Hodgkins Associates, Merit and Merit Lawyers for Growth Companies, Fresh Tracks Capital, Middlebury College, M&E Design, the Center for Women and Enterprise Vermont, and we'd like to BTV Ignite, and also our media sponsor, RETN. Just a note about that. I think by this weekend we'll have the first in our series will actually be online with RETN. So if you didn't get here last week, you can watch online the video of that, and then probably in another week this won't be online. We're going to all of these will be available for people to see in the future. So keep that in mind. So as far as collaborations go, one thing you guys should know is that this is a product of a very important collaboration. Launch VT and John Antonucci, it's been an incredible experience working with John to develop this series. John created the curriculum, and it's been essential for the success of our program. And so I want to, it's a very important concept around here, collaboration, and I want to just point out and thank John for how incredibly successful this collaboration has been. So I'm going to turn it over to John now.
Hey everyone, and I'll also reiterate the welcome. So great to see such a good turnout. Before I get started, I actually want to take a second to thank somebody in this room who's also been really important in getting this series off the ground. And he may not be happy with me, but Michael, could you just stand up really quickly? Can you guys just give a big round of applause for Michael? For those of you who don't know, Michael Metz, he's on the board here, and he just did a ton of work to help us pull this all together. And so I just really wanted to publicly thank you, Michael, for all you did for this. So it's an honor to be part of this collaboration. My name is John Antonucci, and I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship at the Lake Champlain Regional Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber for the last 5 years has been running a program called Launch VT. And it's expanded over several years, and it's become many different things. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to take it into a new direction and expand the programming into the maker entrepreneur community. So when Chris came along and said that he wanted to do something for makers specifically around how to get their businesses going, it was an awesome opportunity to develop a new curriculum and bring along a lot of great content experts that are already here in our community to give their expert wisdom to the entrepreneurs. So I'll just say in one sentence, Launch VT generally, what we do is we provide early stage acceleration programs and resources for entrepreneurs at all stages of their business. Check it out. Just go to the website. We got tons of resources there for you. And if you're interested in applying for any kind of acceleration programs, please do that. We encourage anyone to apply who's got a business or an idea. Specifically, this program, Jumpstart, is really cool in that the curriculum is designed around a couple of basic resources, and we wanted to make it really accessible to everyone, not just the 4 entrepreneurs who are in our cohort, but also all of you who are attending the series. So we do encourage you to try and attend as many as you can. And if you miss one, like Chris said, we're videotaping them thanks to RTN, and they'll be up and you can check those out. And 2 resources I highly recommend you guys using if you haven't checked them out before. One is the Business Model Canvas. Pretty standard resource. It's been around for a little while, but it's a really nice tool. Get it printed as big as you can, get a bunch of sticky notes, and start putting some ideas up on the wall to get your business taking shape. It's really a nice brainstorming tool. The other one is called the Launch Report, and it's a new resource that we've developed at Launch VT. It's a nice executive summary they can use to get your business down on paper. It asks the key components of your business. There's some explainer text. You can download that from our website. And those are designed to work alongside this curriculum. So you can use all the great stuff that our speakers tell you about. You can hit your own businesses, and it helps you guys brainstorm and then put together a finished product so you can feel like, here's my business, here's how it works. And any questions, feel free to reach out to us at Launch VT. We're happy to answer them at any time. So it's now my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker. Kim Stellavato is an expert in brand management and marketing, and she is a veteran in the corporate scene around reaching customers. Her expertise is how do you get your product in front of customers, and how do you get those customers to buy your products and services, how do you keep them, retain them, and how do you structure your services and the pricing structures for your products. And so it's really awesome. She's got an amazing PowerPoint ready for you guys. There'll be a Q&A at the end. But just to give you a brief background, she holds an MBA from Boston College. She has done brand management for huge companies like Keurig Green Mountain, for Illy Coffee, Playtex Baby, and most recently, the Vermont Teddy Bear Company. And she is now doing her craft for King Arthur Flour, which, as we all know, is a really great Vermont company. So she's an instructor for the Center for Women in Enterprise, another amazing organization working in this ecosystem, gives a ton of her time to a bunch of organizations, not just entrepreneurship organizations, but a bunch of community stuff as well. So please give a big, huge round of applause for Kim Stellavato.
Thank you, John, for the warm welcome, and nice to meet all of you. I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about how will people buy your product. So this is all about revenue generation. As John said, how do you really find and know your consumer and get them to purchase? What I'm going to do today is follow the business model canvas, since I know the entrepreneurs that are going through Launch VT are using this model. As John said, it's a great framework for entrepreneurship. I encourage everyone to dive into it, and that's the model I'll be looking through the lens of today. So we're first going to talk by how you create a minimal viable product to bring to market. We're then going to talk as how you bring that product to market through channels, how you're reaching your consumers. Then we're going to talk a little bit about revenue and pricing models. We're going to keep it pretty top line tonight, not to bore you with numbers too much. And then we're going to go into validating your product and launch. So I wanted to start today with a little bit of a visual exercise on your end. So every day, we're all consumers in our daily lives. So I want you to think of a product that you purchased recently that solved a problem. So some things to think about. What problem did that product solve? How did you learn about it? Where did you buy it? What was the intended result of that product that you bought to solve the problem? Did it meet its expectation? Did it truly solve the problem you had at hand? Would you buy it again? And have you spread the word or shared this product with others? So you all may have a product in mind. If not, I'm going to take you through a personal example of a recent consumer journey I went through myself. So this is my dog, puppy, 4.5 months old, Silo. As the snow started falling in Vermont, he suddenly had every hesitation in the world to step off of our front porch. His paws were cold, the snow was getting stuck, and he was constantly in the state of peering over into the front yard saying, I do not want to go there. So what could I do? First thing I thought of is there paw protection for dogs? Went online, started my search, found out they sell dog booties. Great. Looked at specs, looked at a number of websites, settled on these, made by Roughwear. Great company, a lot of great specs, great reviews. What was the end result? We put the dog booties on Silo. He immediately was ready to leap off that front patio into the snow, hasn't gone back since. He's now officially a snow dog. And the amazing thing that's happened since then is everyone who's seen us in our neighborhood, on Church Street, out on a hike. I mean, it's a funny look to begin with, a dog with boots on. Where did you get those? I need those for my dog. So it's become this conversation piece that has created word of mouth. I've shared this with others. And what that has done, at least in my neighborhood, 4 of my neighbors have already purchased dog booties for their dogs. I don't know about the strangers on Church Street. This number could be much higher. But again, just to give you an idea of what a consumer journey looks like day to day and the power of a positive consumer experience, this product solved a problem for me. My dog is happy as could be, and I'm sharing that experience with others. So the point is that the strongest brands and the most successful products are obsessed with their consumers. So consumer-obsessed companies have higher revenues than non-consumer obsessed companies. 86% of consumers actually say that they will pay more for a product that's coming from a customer experience-centric company. We see them every day in our lives. Amazon, Zappos. Think of even storefronts you buy from most regularly. It's because of the positive consumer and customer experience. And why it matters? When you have a positive experience, it creates loyalty. Loyalty for the brand or the product creates repeat revenue. You'll buy again. With repeat revenue also comes referrals because you want to share with everyone you know what a great experience you had, which means even more increased revenue for that product or company. So it's this beautiful cycle to get when you have a positive experience with a consumer. It just keeps going and going down that funnel to create even more of an experience for your brand and product. And I think we all know Steve Jobs has had an amazing track with really understanding who his consumer was and anticipating their needs and creating products that they didn't even know that they needed or wanted. So he's quoted as saying, "Get closer than ever to your customers. So close that you can tell them what they need well before they realize it themselves." And I often like to call this also, in the marketing and brand world, the art of gifting. So when I'm launching a new product or a service or thinking about how to meet my consumers' expectations, I view it as the art of gifting. I have to know that consumer inside out like I would a friend, like I would my husband, and think of what can I give them that is they don't even know that they might need in their lives right now. How can I surprise and delight them with something new and intriguing? So this is so important, just to keep that consumer top of mind no matter where you are in your business plan. So on to creating this minimal viable product. often referred to as the MVP. So what is the minimal viable product? So it's a product with a very basic set of features, and its intended result is to really test the product or the idea to gauge interest and demand. So you could spend the rest of your life trying to create the perfect product or service. You could say, I'm going to perfect this thing and I'm not going to launch it until it's absolutely perfect. But it's perfect in your mind. What about the people you're introducing it to, right? You have to know who that consumer is and what their reaction is going to be to the product. So the idea of the MVP is the product that you're launching should really just be good enough to attract new users and gauge their reaction. So innovation is iterative. It's going to evolve over time. The last thing you want to do is hold back when you have this amazing idea and wait till it's absolutely perfect, because you could think it's perfect, you introduce it to consumers, and you're still going to get loads of feedback and be back in the same process, innovating again. So this is really to get entrepreneurs over this hurdle of perfection. Go with that minimal viable product and get it to market. So Eric Ries, who is the author of The Lean Startup, who is known for creating the business canvas model, he says that the minimal viable product is that version of a new product that allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning with the least amount of effort. So again, a really nice summary there of how you bring that to life. I'm going to take us now through an example and a framework of how to develop an MVP, right? Because this is all great to know, but how do we go about creating this? So the first thing you want to do, I'm going to beat a dead horse, but it's all about the consumer. You need to create a persona. So create a humanized view of who you think your target consumer is. You want to create a problem scenario. So what's the problem that you're trying to satisfy for that consumer? You then want to think about the alternative, being, if your consumer isn't buying your product, what else are they buying? So what's solving their problem right now? There may be nothing, which means you have complete white space to move forward, but more likely than not, they already have some sort of solution. It just may not be the best one for them. And lastly, value proposition. So how is your product or service delivering value to your consumer? And how is that value better than what the other alternative is solving for? So Dropbox is probably one of the best examples I've seen of a successful company who created an MVP, tested it, and has seen unbelievable success with their product. I assume we're all familiar with Dropbox in the room. Yes? So I'm going to read out here what they did for their process. So for the persona, they created Tom the techie. And Tom, he was into technology. He was an early adopter who worked on projects, and he had to transfer a lot of files and shift between networks and collaborators on a regular basis. The problem was, it was really difficult to share these files amongst his collaborators when there were big files and numerous files. And the alternatives that existed on the market, none of them were widely adopted, so there were no network effects. People weren't familiar with the wide range of them. They also required custom setups and were cumbersome to set up and maintain. Not going to work. So they thought through a value proposition of a file sharing service that feels transparent to all users, was easy to use and accessible, and also accessible across multiple platforms. Simple enough. So, from testing, here's what they learned. People like Tom exist, and if there was a really nice, easy file sharing service, they would adopt to it. The experiment, how they found this, all they did was handcraft a demo, a video, posted it, they oriented the message to their target market, promoted it, and they waited to see what happened. The validation criteria, they were hoping to see what the traffic would be on the video, how many signups they would get for product information if they were to release this. And the result, they say, was strong preliminary validation, which I had to do more digging to find out, okay, you validated your idea, but what does strong mean? So what I found is that the 3-minute video increased signups from 5,000 people to 75,000 people overnight, and all of this without a real product. It was simply a demo video. Yet right there, they knew they had a home run, just from releasing this most basic, minimal, viable product to their consumers. And the thing is, when you have that magic moment, consumers are willing to wait. Think of early releases or pre-sales. You share that with the consumer, they cannot wait to have it in their hands once you solve that problem for them. They will patiently wait through all the iterations, the beta testing, to get that solution and improve their lives. Oops, let's see if it clicks. And the point being that product innovation, as I said earlier, is iterative and based on consumer feedback. So every step of your innovation, you want to be asking your consumers, what do you think? What could we be doing better? Your product will evolve and change over time. I say that even about brands. People say, oh, this is my brand strategy, and I can't launch until everything's lined up and perfectly sustainable. And that's an amazing goal to have, and I fully believe in that as well, but don't let that stop you from starting today. So the minimum, clearly you see this poor guy in this boat, no one wants to use it, it doesn't solve the problem. Minimum viable, good enough to attract its first users, and eventually through that feedback loop, you get onto your viable product. The one that you truly want to build, the one that's going to make you reach more consumers. And now, so you may be wondering, I've got this product, I've got this service. Okay, Dropbox did a demo video, that's not gonna work on my end. How do I test my product with my market? There are a number of things you can do. This list is not fully exhaustive. There are 1,000 ideas online from entrepreneurs who've tested their product and validated them. There are consumer surveys. You can create landing pages just to understand site metrics like page views. You get 1,000 page views within a day, guess what? There's probably a lot of interest in the idea or service that you have. You can set up Google advertising and A/B test some ideas. And if it lands on a product page, even if there's nothing there, you could say, this is coming soon, here's my product. Or take pre-orders for the product that's coming. You could do fundraising. So putting an idea on Kickstarter, what a better way? You get crowdfunding and you test your product by understanding how many people are interested in investing in you. You can create digital prototypes, which is very much what Dropbox did. Beta testing, physical prototypes, and as I mentioned, the pre-order page to build excitement and see how many people are actually willing to click through and put their money where their mouth is when they see their product and make that purchase before you even have it in front of them. So at this point, you should have a viable product in front of you. And that product, at this point, you should have a very firm understanding of the product's unique selling point, its value proposition, so what value is it providing to its end user, and the need statement and problem that it's solving for, as we went through earlier. So this should all be very clear through the MVP process. In the end, this is crystal clear to you. So what's next once you have your MVP? Well then, how do I get it to market and generate revenue? So here's where you need to start thinking about placement, which is your channels and distribution, your price, promotion, which would be marketing, and then again, you want to validate that plan and build, measure, and learn. So this is what we're going to move on to next. So bringing your product to market. You've got your MVP in front of you. With all hesitation, you're probably thinking, now what? So this is where you need to start thinking about channels. And channels are all about getting your product or service in front of your target consumers. Channels are touch points. It's how you're reaching them. It's how you're sharing your idea with the world. Typically, we view it as a direct channel or an indirect channel. So if you're selling a product, a direct channel may be your own website, your email broadcasting to your consumers, a shop like Etsy or Shopify where you're really owning that experience. Whereas indirect may be you selling your product to a retailer or to a distributor. So it's adding a level of a touch point between you and your consumer. And in terms of promotion and marketing, you have inbound and outbound channels. So inbound channels are owned channels, such as your blog, your website, any search engine optimization that you do. And outbound channels are when you're pushing your marketing out via advertising, cold calls perhaps, to try to get your consumers or customers on the line. And how channels help deliver your value proposition? They help you build awareness. They help you build trial of your product. They help deliver your value proposition through your marketing message. The most important thing probably, they allow your customers to purchase your product, which is the most important thing that you want to happen. And they also should be providing post-purchase support, and we'll get a little bit more into that later. So channels are delivering a customer experience. And this is, if you think back to the example we went through at the beginning of the presentation, there are these channel phases, which I like to call the consumer journey in marketing terms, of awareness, evaluation, purchase, delivery, and after sales. And then over here, on this axis, we have the channel types that we discussed of partner and owned and indirect and direct. So I'm going to take you through an example of channel phases, thinking back to Steve Jobs, because Apple just has always hit a home run in terms of creating this consumer experience. So in terms of awareness for Apple, I'm thinking back to the early days when they first launched the iPod. I'm probably aging myself in this room. It's hard to even say now. They launched the iPod nationally on these very simplistic billboards all over the country. They did not have to say a word on these billboards. The visual said it all. Everyone wanted to know, what is this new product that Apple's releasing? No marketing message, simple visual. That's how they built awareness of the iPod. What about evaluation? You go on Apple's website and you can compare and contrast. You can look at the specs. You can look at how much music something holds. You can look at the gigabytes and what have you. You know the dimensions. Consumers can go and evaluate every product. Purchase. Apple has done an amazing job of creating a consumer experience in their own stores. And why that's so important for them, they've created these brick and mortar touch points with consumers that are wholly owned and fully embrace our ideology and bring that consumer into the experience. It's experiential. Delivery. Delivery is the use of the product in the consumer's hands. So think of this is ultimately where you're delivering your value proposition. The consumer is now experiencing your product, and the hope is it's delivering every expectation, it's solving the problem that they had at hand, and it's bringing your value proposition to life. And after sales, what happens when a consumer has an issue with your product? What if they have a question regarding usage? Apple's created the Genius Bar, where people can come to you for support. So they have really built this amazing channel process at every touch point along the consumer journey to ensure the best consumer experience. So I want to speak a moment to distribution channels, because a lot of entrepreneurs start thinking through, I need to get my product to market. I'm not Apple. Where do I even start? Should I be selling directly to my consumers? Should I be going through a distributor? Should I be selling to retailers? I don't know what's best. So there's this idea of B2B and B2C. So business to business is the idea of you marketing to other businesses or services, and business to consumer is you selling directly to your end consumer. There are positives and negatives along both fronts, but we'll get into that on this next slide. So your route to market is going to be deciding what you want your distribution chain to look like. So let's say you're just starting out. Let's say I just created a pair of dog boots, and I'm now ready to bring them to market to reach everyone like me who has suffering dogs in the winter. My first route will probably be, I want to create my own website and maybe an email database to reach my consumers. So this would be direct to consumer. You have a product, you bring it directly to them. Your website, Shopify, Etsy, email, whatever that direct touch point is. The challenge here is your reach is only big as you can build it. The positives are you control that entire experience. In terms of getting that product in front of them, you control the buying experience, and you control the post-sale experience as well. So you own all of the touch points with your consumer, which is a huge plus when you're starting out. For business to business, you may do this for a year or two, grow sales, see success, and then say, I'm just not reaching a large enough audience on my own. I need to go a little bit bigger and I need more reach. So this is where you start thinking, I'm ready to sell to a retailer. The benefit of that, they clearly have more reach, so you'll have more consumers. The negatives, you don't control the entire experience chain anymore with your consumer. So that's at a critical point where you really need to think through, am I ready for that next step? And if I go to that next step, how can I work with my partners and retailers to ensure that positive consumer experience along the way? And then the other B2B model is this idea of a third-party distribution model. So you could sell directly to a retailer, or you could say, that's really complicated. I don't want to manage selling to 30 different retailers on my own because that's going to take up a ton of administrative work on my end to manage all these purchase orders and shipments, and I'm a team of one. How do I manage this? So some people take the route of selling third party to a distributor or a broker or an agent, and that person then goes and sells to the retailer. Now, as you can see, why I did this visually is to show how that touch point with your consumer gets further and further away. So not to say that you lose control, but you don't have that same experience as you have here. And neither does your consumer at the end of the day. So it's just something to be mindful of. Your reach and your sales should be getting bigger the further out you go, because these people have more reach than these people, and these people have more reach than you. However, always keep in mind the consumer experience. Very critical here. Okay. Now you're in your channels. How are you going to generate revenue within them? If you put it on shelf or get it into retail, it'll sell, right? That's the hope. So a revenue stream represents the cash that a company generates from each of its customer segments. So there are several types of revenue streams, and I'll go through examples on the next following slides. But there's the everyday transaction revenues, which would be based on the sales of goods. So basically, when you go purchase a pizza, simple transaction revenue happens day to day for us. Then there's recurring revenues. So this is something like a phone plan. It's a monthly fee you pay for a service or a product. Then there's project revenue. Think of consulting or an agency. It's generated by a one-time project or maybe multiple projects over time. And then there's service revenue, which is a model that sells time, so a charge per hour. So think of, again, either a cleaning service or perhaps even a consulting service that has an hourly rate. And the revenue can come from a number of things. You can look at, as I said earlier, the transaction revenue will be the sale of an asset to the consumer. There's also the idea of licensing your product or idea. There's usage fees, hourly rates, subscription fees. The list can go on and on here. You can even sell advertising on your site to bring in revenue. So just think outside the box. Don't just always think about the product as that transaction. There are many ways and many revenue streams to create within your business. And now, pricing is critically important because you have to be thinking along the revenue chain, what will people pay for my product? And price is a really sensitive subject because a lot of people base price on cost. And I always caution, it's about the consumer. So price is what a willing buyer is willing to pay for something that is offered by a willing seller. Price on value. What is your value proposition and how is it different than competition? That's how you establish a price. Yes, you need to validate it to make sure A, you're making money, B, your margins work, and that it works with your cost of goods, but you want to start with value. What value are you delivering, and what value will your consumer perceive that you're delivering? So for a product, you'll develop a unit cost. For a service, an hourly rate. And then you also have to decide, is your pricing going to be fixed or dynamic? So are you going to have a predefined price that you offer to everyone? Or are you going to have a dynamic price that changes due to market conditions? So think of the airlines. They're famous at this. It depends on supply and demand, and sometimes they rise, and sometimes they fall, and if you miss that price, too bad. Try again tomorrow. So there are many different ways you can go with pricing, and you really need, again, think of your consumer, what's happening within your category, what are your competitors doing, and dive right in and decide what's the best model for you to move forward with. So we're going to do a quick example of how you create a price based on value. So I'm going to go back to the example of the dog boots from the beginning of the presentation. So let's say that I'm the manufacturer of the dog boots, and I know that my competition is selling those boots for $5.99. So this is my reference price that I'm going to look at. I'm then going to say, what unique attributes does my product bring to my consumer versus the competition? So my product offers a lifetime guarantee, and I overall have better functionality than all my competition. Then you're going to assess what's the dollar value my consumer would pay in addition to the competition for my product. So you may say this is worth about $1 to the consumer, perceived value. Better functionality, someone will pay probably $2 more for that. So you get to your price based on value, $8.99. It seems too simple to be true, but I highly recommend starting here. It's a visual exercise. It helps you think through your points of difference, your unique selling points, your competitive positioning in your marketplace. And sometimes your price can go negative. So if you're more of a value product and most of your competition is at a higher price, and let's say you're delivering less than competition, you might be subtracting dollars off that competitive price. So it's not always a build. But this reference price is so important. And you can do this if you have 6 competitors, map them all out and understand where you land versus competition on price. And as I said earlier, yes, you still need to be profitable. So always make sure that you know your cost of goods, your suggested retail price. If you're selling to retailers, you need to know what that wholesale price is. Distributors, the distributor price. Are you going to offer quantity discounts if people buy in bulk? And all of that needs to make sense with this number. So I'm not telling you to go blind and base all your pricing just on competition. Gut check it in the end, check the financials. It needs to be sound and secure. Start here though. Because you find a lot of times that entrepreneurs, especially starting out, they sell themselves short on the value they're delivering to the consumers. So I often find people are really leaving money on the table because they haven't done this exercise. They're looking at their costs and saying, well, I'm fine with making 40% margin, therefore I'm gonna sell my product at X dollars. But if the consumer is willing to pay 20% more because you're that much better than the competitive set or you're solving a problem that's never been solved before, you're leaving that 20% on the table. So just keep that in mind as you think about pricing. And now a revenue stream example using the dog boots. So what I want to do is frame up for you what this might look like with pricing and your channels. So let's say I'm the manufacturer of these dog boots and my retail price is $14.99. This is what I'm selling to my consumers for. So on my website that I own, I'm selling direct to my consumers a pair of boots for $14.99. So if I sell 100 units, there's my revenue. But it's small. I can only reach 100 people because it's my own channel. That's my broadest reach I can get at the moment. So then I start to think, well, what if I sell to a retailer? So I call up OGE and I say, hey, do you want to buy my cool dog boots? They willingly accept, place a purchase order for 500 units, and I have to figure out what my wholesale price is. So my retail price remains the same, but I have to develop a price at which to sell to them. So this is where my revenue is going to go down per unit because I'm not selling them retail. I have to sell them wholesale price because OGE needs to make money too. So my wholesale price I set at $10, which means I'm selling 500 units and I'm making $5,000. Reaching more people, but a little bit more revenue per unit on my side because the retailer needs their cut. Then I decide, I want an even bigger reach because I'm seeing great success at OGE. So I call up Target and Petco. Let's go really big now. I want to double my reach and sell 1,000 units. So I want to use a distributor to reach these guys because I don't want to deal with these massive players. So I then need to determine what's my distributor price. So my distributor, I need to sell them the product. They then need to sell the retailer the product. The retailer then needs to sell your consumer the product. So there are all of these pricing tiers where you need to make sure you're building in the margin for all of these touch points. So now my revenue per unit goes down to $8 that I'm getting in my pocket for every unit sold to the end consumer. However, my reach is getting bigger. I'm reaching more consumers. So this is just an idea to show you, you may be here, start here today, smaller reach, high margins. As you grow, you may find you need to expand your reach. Your overall unit margin will shrink slightly, but if you reach 3 to 4 times as many people, it's going to net out still having a very profitable business on your end. So you may want to start with one channel and one revenue channel, but over time, you can have multiple channels at once. And it's really about finding the right mix for your business. And Apple, coming back to Apple again, we're seeing some themes throughout the presentation. And why I chose Apple here is because they've done an amazing job creating multiple revenue streams for themselves. They're a classic example of having one-time revenue streams of buy a product, and guess what? You can trade up or trade down between products. So you can choose an iPhone 8, an iPhone 8 Plus, or an iPhone 10. So the consumer has their choice of what product they want to purchase. They can trade up, they can trade down. Then, when you buy your phone, guess what? You also need to buy an iPhone case. So there's an accessory with your product. And guess what? If you drop it, what happens? Don't you want to buy Apple Care? And that then is a one-time fee of $99. And then, what if your screen breaks? You want to buy insurance, right? Now they've offered a recurring fee as part of their revenue stream. Now someone's going to pay $15 a month. They're going to have recurring revenue coming in to protect that phone. And oh shoot, my phone can't take another picture because my iCloud storage is filled. I'm going to get a little pop-up that says for 99 cents a month, I can increase my iCloud storage. So now, again, another recurring revenue stream they've developed for their end consumer for this one product. So we're all probably thinking with our iPhones right now how much we've gotten sucked into this revenue stream. But Apple has really done a thoughtful job on the back end of thinking how they can get not only product revenue, one-time revenue, but recurring revenue from their consumer base.